He was once the voice of a generation, a rock star who packed arenas and sold millions of records. But this week, Ian Watkins, the former frontman of Lostprophets, met a violent end inside one of Britain's most notorious prisons. According to early reports, the 48-year-old was attacked shortly after inmates were unlocked from their cells at HMP Wakefield. Moments later, chaos erupted. Guards rushed to the scene. Alarms blared, and within minutes, the man who once stood on the world's biggest stages was pronounced dead. No one could have predicted just how brutal that final chapter would be, or how the story behind it would reopen wounds many thought had long healed. Because the truth about Ian Watkins' downfall is darker and more disturbing than anyone imagined, and the details emerging from inside those prison walls are almost unbelievable. It all began just after 9:30 a.m. inside HMP Wakefield, a maximum security prison often called Monster Mansion because of the inmates it holds. Moments after the morning unlock, a sudden commotion broke out in one of the wings. Witnesses say Watkins was ambushed by another inmate who slashed at his neck in a frenzied attack. By the time guards reached him, he had suffered catastrophic injuries. Emergency crews were called immediately, but it was already too late. The scene was described as chaotic. Blood on the floor, alarms echoing through the corridors, and terrified inmates locked back in their cells as officers flooded the block. One prison source told reporters it was over in seconds, saying Watkins never stood a chance. The entire facility was placed on immediate lockdown as detectives and forensics teams arrived to begin what would quickly be classified as a homicide investigation. But even with the shocking violence of that morning, authorities have been careful about what they say publicly. The prison service only confirmed a serious incident had taken place, while West Yorkshire police stated simply that a 48-year-old male prisoner had been pronounced dead at the scene. Behind those few official words, though, was a brutal reality, and questions that would soon have everyone talking. Within hours, the investigation was underway. Hey musicians, tired of spending hours searching for playlist curators only to find ghost accounts and dead ends? What if you could find their contacts in 60 seconds? Say hello to Playlist Owl. Just type any genre like Lofi. Instantly get playlists with curator emails, social handles, and stats, all from Spotify. Stop searching. Start pitching directly and watch your streams grow. Get lifetime access. Click the link in the description and transform your dead-end searches into real playlists.
Playlist Owl, Spotify Curator Simplified.
Detectives from the Homicide and Major Inquiry team sealed off the entire wing, interviewing prisoners and collecting evidence. Two inmates were immediately separated and taken into custody for questioning, both later charged in connection with Watkins' death. Officials haven't revealed what led to the attack, but inside sources say it may have been building for weeks. The Ministry of Justice released only a brief statement, saying it was aware of an incident and couldn't comment further while the police investigation continued. Meanwhile, West Yorkshire police confirmed that emergency services were called at 9:39 a.m. after reports of a serious assault and that the victim was pronounced dead at the scene. No prison staff were injured, but the facility remained on lockdown for the rest of the day. Behind the formal language of press releases, the tone was unmistakable. This was not a random fight. Watkins had enemies, both inside and outside those walls, and after years of notoriety, his presence in Wakefield was a constant source of tension. Still, as investigators pieced together the timeline, one thing is clear. This attack wasn't his first brush with danger behind bars, because long before his death, Ian Watkins had already become a marked man. Life behind bars was never easy for Ian Watkins, and it wasn't meant to be. From the moment he entered HMP Wakefield, he was viewed as one of the most despised inmates in the entire system. Guards kept a close eye on him, but even constant monitoring couldn't erase the danger that came with his crimes. Inmates like Watkins, convicted of crimes involving children, often live under constant threat. Whispers follow them everywhere. Some are forced into isolation, others moved between units for their own safety. But even in a place built to control chaos, revenge can still find a way. Back in 2023, Watkins barely survived a violent hostage situation. He was cornered by 3 inmates, stabbed multiple times, and held captive for hours before officers managed to free him. That attack left him shaken and scarred, a clear warning that he wasn't welcome anywhere inside those walls. And despite that, his reputation only made things worse. In 2019, he was caught hiding an illegal phone inside his own body, a desperate move that landed him in even more trouble and proved that even in prison, his behavior never stopped making headlines. To some inmates, that only made him more of a target. By the time this latest attack happened, many believed it was only a matter of time. Watkins had become a symbol, not of fame, but of everything the public despised. And inside Monster Mansion, that kind of infamy is the most dangerous thing you can carry. Before the crimes, before the trials, Ian Watkins was a superstar. He rose to fame in the early 2000s as the charismatic frontman of Lostprophets, a Welsh rock band that took the alternative scene by storm. Their mix of raw energy, catchy hooks, and anthemic sound made them global stars. With hits like Last Train Home and on rooftops, the band sold over 3.5 million albums and performed to sold-out crowds around the world. To fans, Watkins was the face of a new wave of British rock, confident, stylish, and unstoppable. But behind the fame, darker secrets were taking shape. In 2013, everything came crashing down when police uncovered shocking evidence during a drug investigation. What started as a narcotics raid quickly spiraled into one of the most disturbing criminal cases in British music history. The details that surfaced were beyond anything fans could comprehend, and when Watkins finally pled guilty to multiple charges, his fall from grace was complete. The headlines destroyed Lostprophets overnight. The band's music was pulled from stores, fans burned their merch, and his bandmates, horrified and betrayed, disbanded immediately, cutting all ties with their former friend. What was once a story of fame, talent, and success had transformed into one of the darkest scandals the music world had ever seen. When the truth about Watkins' crimes surfaced, it sent shockwaves through the music industry and devastated everyone who had once supported him. Lostprophets disbanded almost immediately after his sentencing, their members publicly condemning his actions and expressing deep remorse for ever having been associated with him. They described feeling sickened and betrayed, emotions shared by millions of fans who had grown up with their music. In the years that followed, the remaining members attempted to rebuild their lives, forming a new band under a different name and vowing to never let Watkins' legacy define them. But despite their efforts, the shadow of Lostprophets never truly disappeared. For many, their songs became impossible to separate from the horrific acts of their former frontman. The once beloved band became a tragic reminder of how quickly success can turn to infamy, how one person's actions can destroy not just a career, but an entire legacy. Even now, with Watkins gone, the controversy surrounding his name continues to stir strong emotions, disgust, anger, and disbelief as the world struggles to reconcile the talent that once inspired millions with the darkness that ultimately consumed him. In the wake of Ian Watkins' death, investigators are still piecing together exactly how the attack unfolded and why. West Yorkshire police have charged 2 inmates in connection with the killing, and court proceedings are expected to reveal more about what led to the violent confrontation inside HMP Wakefield. Prison officials remain under scrutiny, with many questioning how such a high-profile and at-risk inmate could once again be targeted after previous incidents. For now, authorities have released few details, citing security concerns and ongoing legal processes, but the broader discussion has already begun. Critics argue that the case exposes deeper issues within the prison system, failures in inmate protection, staff shortages, and the dangerous dynamics of housing notorious offenders among the general population. Others, however, view Watkins' death as grimly inevitable, the final consequence of crimes so vile they left him despised by nearly everyone around him. As the investigation continues, one thing is certain: the story of Ian Watkins doesn't end with his death. It's now a case study in how fame, power, and moral collapse can collide with brutal reality. Ian Watkins' story is a chilling reminder of how quickly a life of fame can twist into something unrecognizable. Once a global rock star, his name is now forever linked to one of the darkest scandals in modern music, and his brutal death behind bars has only deepened that legacy. For some, it feels like justice catching up in the harshest possible way. For others, it raises uncomfortable questions about punishment, protection, and what it really means to pay for your sins. In the end, Watkins' journey from adored frontman to convicted predator, and now to a victim of prison violence, stands as a tragic warning about how power and fame can hide monstrous truths. His story isn't one of redemption or sympathy, it's a lesson in how the choices we make can define us long after we're gone. And as investigators close in on the final details, one thing remains clear: some legacies aren't remembered for what they created, but for what they destroyed.